morning, Matt. Welcome to the show, and thanks for joining me today.
Morning, Paul. Happy to be here.
Yes, thank you. I'm super excited to chat with you. So you have an interesting background into shop ownership, and I'd love for you to first just start by introducing yourself, the company, and let's just get into the background of how you ended up being a shop owner.
Sure. Yeah, I'm Matthew Sawhill. Our company is Innovative Manufacturing and Engineering. I've been involved with this company now for 7 years. My background is in engineering. I grew up loving working on things with tools, taking things apart, putting them back together again without any extra pieces, that sort of thing. And that led me into a career in engineering. So early on in my career, I was doing product development, product design, product management. But some of my colleagues that I worked with earlier in my career sort of decided to take a different path and looked into starting their own business or getting into manufacturing by purchasing existing manufacturing companies. And I kind of watched with a keen eye for a few years there while they were getting their footing and learning all the ins and outs of owning your own business. Meanwhile, I continued my career, took a turn into working for a software company and kind of a fast-paced customer-facing role. I learned a lot about how different industries function, how high-performing companies, achieve success in a competitive market, and that sort of thing. And there came a fateful day in 2016 when two of my friends and former colleagues had been working together in this company, and one of them passed away unexpectedly. So I remember being on the phone that night. I was traveling for work, talked to my now business partner just about, what do you do to kind of keep everything on the rails? And so, I offered to help him in any way I could in the short term, just for continuity in the business, helping on the weekends and that sort of thing. And as we continued our discussion, it made sense for us to form a partnership together. And from there, I guess the rest is history, but we really wanted to develop a shared vision to make this company the best that it could possibly be. And for us, the focus has always been on our employees and our culture, making this a fantastic place to work. So that's been a long journey and a story in and of itself. But today we're stronger than ever. We're still a small company with a close knit, small but growing team of people, and it's been a fun ride. It's every day is interesting. It's a lot of hard work, but I wouldn't trade it for anything, I guess.
Very cool. So tell us a little bit about what you guys specialize in. Kind of equipment you have, who you serve.
Yeah. We're a contract CNC manufacturer. I call us that because in our evolution, when I first became involved in the business, we would take basically any work that walked through the front door, quantities of one or two. We did a lot of emergency repair work where a machine at a local production factory would break down, and in a short time frame we could reverse engineer and reproduce a part. But really, there was an evolution over time where we saw that we had high value CNC production equipment, very skilled workers, and when you're not planning over the long term to keep your schedule busy, you can have all those resources idle more than you want.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
The short story is you want the machines to be the most busy thing in the shop, not the least busy thing. And through looking at how to work with existing customers, focus in on what we feel like we're better at from our own past experience than what our other shops in the area might be able to do well. we started going down the path of automation and unattended
Hmm.
production. And that was, we found that our capabilities were better suited to higher production quantities,
Hmm.
and developing our ability to run lights out, to operate with a high level of automation. And that got us into where now we do higher production quantities, longer term relationships with our customers. So we usually expect that we're going to continue working with the customer year after year and continue to produce the part.
Yeah.
We've done very well with that over the last few years in building out that strategy. Um, Related to ProShop, we saw an opportunity to get an industry quality certification, and we were trying to navigate that space and settled in on going for our AS9100 quality certification.
Yeah.
And we achieved that earlier this year. And that was
Congrats.
ProShop played a crucial role in that. So uh, that's a new area for our business. We're still learning the ropes, and as you're well aware, the complexity of meeting security requirements with your business systems and those sorts of things. It's a moving target, a lot of complexity,
Yeah.
and we're learning to navigate in this new space. But it's been exciting so far, and we're looking forward to what we're going to be able to do in that space.
Very cool. So before we get into choosing ProShop and some of that journey, I'd love for you to share a little more detail, because I hear, and I know personally, when I had my shop, the transition from, emergency short-term prototype type work to longer term contracts, higher production, repeat business. That's a journey. That's a path that I think most shops want to, pursue. Um, Not all of them succeed in that. They kind of get
Mm-hmm.
stuck in a rut, if you will, with their clients that think of them as this, quick turn, low volume kind of shop, which is, as you said, very demanding, very hard on your schedule, very hard to always keep full. You never know. It's very feast or famine, hand to mouth kind of thing. How did you make that transition, and what did you do that allowed you to, sort of move into that higher volume work?
Yeah, that's a big one. It's hard to imagine a bigger, um, kind of more foundational change that you could make to a business.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it, but we had to, it's like eating an elephant, I guess. We did it one step at a time, and it was really just a process of continuing to identify areas where we would stumble and come up with strategies to prevent stumbling. And to make it sound maybe simpler than it is, that's essentially what we did. But we started by really looking at the capabilities of our existing equipment to sustain unattended production. We already had um, a two-axis lathe with a bar feeder, a
Mm-hmm.
couple other machines around the shop that could, um, you know, load their own material and catch the parts with a parts catcher. And we started with at that basic level. And it was really just a realization one day that we had this piece of equipment. It was running the same part in this case for a couple of weeks, and for us, maybe a quantity of 1,000, which to us was a huge order.
Right.
And the machine was running, but we had an operator standing in front of it the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't that we were doing our accounting and trying to think how can we eliminate people. We had other machines that could run if we could operate the machine in a different way so that a person could walk away from it and know that it was going to continue to make good parts. So, really, it's that was the beginning of it, but the evolution of it has, over time, we've realized that, it's critical that you have clear roles and responsibilities for people so that they, if one person is supporting production on a work center, and then you need to swap out a different person, to maybe load balance in the shop or get somebody working on a setup. Um, just to be able to sustain production with more than one person involved over time requires a lot of discipline and a lot of definition of process and roles and responsibilities, so that everybody knows when they walk up to an active work center, they know what to expect. They know where to find information. They know how to get an accurate read on the status of the production process and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, from a people standpoint, there's a lot of complexity. Also, over time, we've sold off the machinery that we had in house that could not sustain unattended production, and we've been purchasing new machines that are capable, that have the level of capability that we need. Um, you know, every machine has basic capability to stop at the end of the cycle and start up at the beginning automatically, but managing the limited life of the tooling and other process variables, you end up using just about every capability that the machine has in order to maximize the reliability of the process. So it's been quite a transformation for us to go through to get to the point where we can reliably just execute a production work order and achieve the performance that we need to.
That's great. So it's one thing to get the machines and the processes dialed in to be able to do that work. The other big part is finding customers willing to give you that work. Did you have to find new customers or just approach them differently and say, hey, now we're really focused on higher volume production. What do you have? Or maybe on the commercial side, how did you make that transition?
Yeah, it's that we have a fantastic member of our team who is responsible for sales, and he had a lot of stress, I would say, to put it in a word, to make the transition. But we did have relationships with customers who worked with us on smaller volume orders, but as we worked with them and shared that we were investing in capabilities to do higher production quantities, to some degree we were able to retain existing customers, and in their cycle of looking for new vendors for new parts and that sort of thing, we were able to start to adjust their focus to where they would bring us opportunities to do higher production volume parts. So it took a lot of close work with existing customers to look for the segment of their work that we might be able to do that was higher production quantities. Some customers over time, we just worked with them to find other suppliers. I think it's probably unusual in our industry for a company to develop relationships with other shops who might be thought of as competitors, to find sources for some of the good work that we were doing, but that we, could no longer fit into our schedule. So we did a certain amount of that activity. In the end, we were able to maintain good relationships with past customers, even as we scaled back the quantity of business that we did with them, while we continued to look for net new customers who had the kind of work that fit closer to our profile. And this was a multi-year transition.
Sure. So a little bit of build it and they will come. You got the equipment, you started, getting things that would support higher production, and then went out and said, hey, this is what we have. And that was successful in them giving you opportunities. Cool.
Yep.
And the idea of helping your customers find sources for other sources for work that you didn't have capacity or weren't interested in, because with some of that just smaller volume work, you're like, thanks, but no thanks, but here's a great supplier that might be able to take care of you.
Yep. Yeah, it was cool. Exactly that sort of a conversation. It was really important. We value our relationships with our employees and the team of people that we have within these walls, but also our customer relationships. We recognize that we are completely dependent on our customers to be able to come into work every day and do what we do, and maintaining good relationships with those customers is critically important, even when we see that the future direction of what we can deliver and what our customers need might diverge, and we might be going in different directions. So to this day, we've, there were no customers were injured or harmed during the transition. We still have good relationships with those customers, and really, I think one thing that I recognize as I look at our path forward is that we still have the skill set that we used when we were doing the lower production quantity work, and that may be something that we bring back in place sometime down the road to balance out our customer balance or our overall portfolio. So it's not that we've given up on that kind of work. We've found it to be a good way to go, but I think it's best in part of a balanced portfolio for us. So,
do you sometimes need to take on some prototypes in order to win a production job?
Yeah, we do a certain amount of that.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, that makes sense.
In fact, more and more we try to work with our customers to a design engineer who's designing a piece of machinery, having done it myself, a lot of times they're faced with their own schedule constraints and design challenges. And, as a design progresses from early concept to manufacturable end product, you get more and more constrained and boxed in, and it gets hard to give each component the time and attention it needs to be really optimized. And we've had really good success in working with our customers to share with them ideas that we have on how to tolerance parts differently, but in a way that doesn't compromise functionality in any way, but improves manufacturability, tolerances, finishes, even how to take a design with multiple components and maybe break down the features differently to optimize for manufacturability. So if we can work with a customer early in the production process, we can often save them cost in their overall project by designing parts that are more suited to reliable manufacturing. So
yeah, that's fantastic. It's that's a strategy that my shop did, really leaned into that design for manufacturability part, to the point where we even, those that listen to the show will know that, we ended up doing newsletters and even like DFM boot camps with our customers, and it builds such a tight bond with those engineers who really know that you have their back. You're there to help support them and make them look better. Their parts can be cheaper and faster and less scrap and all the wonderful things that everyone wants. And it just really builds that partnership that puts your company in a great spot to continue to get that work. So good work on that.
That's a genuine. I feel like it's a really genuine value that we're creating. It's not a marketing effort or anything like that. It's just really that these things require time and attention and care, and if you can work with someone who has expertise. We deal every day with the limitations of our machines and the capabilities of our machines, and we have a keen eye for a certain set of constraints that if you address them in the design, you can have a lot more reliable production. And that's good for us, but it's also good for our customer when they've got good parts that fit and they can meet their production schedule as well. Yeah. So it's been a good direction for us to go.
Awesome. Good stuff. Thank you. All right. So I'd love for if you would paint the picture of what your shop looked like or challenges you were having when you were deciding you needed a different ERP, and sort of what you were using, what you were doing before that.
Yeah. To say that we've matured in our journey in embracing ProShop would be an understatement. And as we get into this discussion, I think you'll kind of see a common thread where, we were just a kind of a plain old basic job shop for a number of years, where decisions were just made off the cuff. The schedule was really just an idea in the back of somebody's head, and usually the customer who was calling us, not necessarily the most upset, but with the most urgency, they usually got the focus in the schedule.
Yeah.
And our legacy ERP system was essentially a document generator that we could use to print off a vendor PO. It was a place where we could save a customer PO, and we could print a job traveler. And it's sad to say it, but really beyond that, we weren't getting much value out of the system. So
right.
The shop ran on paper and on decisions that were made off the cuff on the production floor.
Okay. Yeah.
And so as we transitioned into ProShop, it was driven by recognizing that we couldn't scale the business. We were running at the limit of our pace at which we could, make ad hoc decisions. So that was really where we recognized that we needed to make some fundamental changes to our processes.
Was there? Were you in this transition to more production work and realizing that the digital systems you had or the paper-based systems just weren't going to scale with your new focus in marketing and and more automated production? Or which sort of chicken or egg, which came first, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's almost like our legacy ERP system was a place to you had to go looking for problems. It didn't really show you where the issues were, or it didn't give you a perspective on what was going on in the shop floor that you could make decisions from. And a lot of it's because, while the system was a database that ran on our PCs, it really ran off the paper documents that we were routing through the shop. That didn't give us a good opportunity to really plan anything with the rigor that we needed to. We didn't necessarily have good uniform setup documentation. So if one machinist would set it up this time and another one would do it next time, they would essentially throw away each other's work and start over. It was hard to find, we couldn't duplicate a setup because we couldn't find the tool that had been used last time. We hadn't documented problems that we were having with the prior run. So when we set it up the next time, we duplicate the problems of the prior run. We duplicate the setup to some degree, but also the problems we had. And it was a slow evolution to try to make things better. So we were, at the end of the day, when every job going through the shop hasn't been carefully planned and not well documented, and there's not a clear status of the job at any point during production, you're kind of flying blind at every level. And just the issues that we would encounter in running that way became self-limiting in terms of our production capacity. So we had to do something different.
Sure. Do you mind sharing what system you were on at the time? Or is that?
It was E2.
It was E2. Okay. So as you then decided we need something different, what were your next steps? How did you go about researching what might possibly going to be next?
We started looking to other shops that we had good relationships with to see what systems they were using and listening to the kinds of issues that they were having and getting familiar with the different options that we had. My business partner actually first found out about ProShop, and I don't even know where he came across you guys, but we decided to set up a call and learn a little bit more about what you offered. And it was pretty clear to me out of the gate that ProShop had some differences from what we were seeing from the other options. And it just seemed like it was, I don't know how to say it, but in a way it was more tailor-made to fit our set of problems that we were experiencing and address those in a way that I thought was maybe a little more, more targeted and more attainable for us than what I might have seen in some of the larger, more complex systems, and also more capable than the kinds of systems that we were already using. So.
Okay. So you decided to, did you evaluate a number of potential options, I presume, then?
We did. Yeah, we looked at, it was really down to two different systems that we were looking at, but yeah, kind of filtering down from a larger pool.
Sure.
And we'd even contemplated just, using spreadsheets and databases ourselves, and kind of going that route. But the administrative effort and the visibility, the real-time visibility of what was going on in the shop, were, kind of key in the direction that we needed to go. And certainly with ProShop, it was clear right out of the gate that the way that it's architected fit really well with the way we look at the world. So it seemed like it was going to be a good fit.
Okay. So can you describe a little bit about then the training implementation process? I don't remember who you actually trained with, but what that process was like.
Yeah, well, so yeah, in essence, I kind of kept it close to the vest just by doing the implementation myself. We started. I started being trained on how ProShop works. I think I'm thinking in my mental calendar here, but the middle of 2022, I think July of 2022, and we went through the series of training meetings where we'd go through the different modules, learn how they worked, and that sort of thing. Beginning in October of that year, I started running ProShop in parallel with our other system to familiarize myself with how work orders got put into the system and how to keep them up to date, and the considerations on what we would need to do to train our internal users to be productive. Then around, I think, mid-November of that year, I got everybody signed into the system, and we started tracking the work in ProShop instead of in E2. I would keep E2 up to date at that point in the background, so that we had that continuity of the progress. And once I was comfortable that we had worked through several work orders and that our own machinists were trained on how to use ProShop, starting at the beginning of 2023, January 1st, 2023, we went live and never looked back.
Okay. So you trained for about 3 months or so, then started doing parallel for about a month and a half, and then cut the cord in January. Okay.
Yeah, and it certainly could have gone faster, but to some degree, we're a small company and we run pretty lean, and I knew I couldn't afford a hiccup and a misstep, so I wanted to make sure that I had 100% handle on what to expect and how to make it successful, and it went off very well. So, we could have accelerated it. And looking back, I might have been a little more aggressive with our time frame, because the benefits that we are getting out of ProShop are substantial, and to have accelerated things a little bit, we wouldn't have had a hiccup, and we would have started getting better information and better execution on the floor right away. I think we could have done it sooner.
Yeah, well, that's I think about a month of overlap. That's I think that's a perfectly great time frame. And some are quicker, some are definitely slower, but going into something where you aren't really sure exactly how it's going to go, prudence and caution is it's hard to go wrong with a little bit of extra of those. So besides your old system, how many other various little spreadsheets or whiteboards or other kind of things were you using to help manage the shop that you might have replaced?
It was, where do I start? We had a calendar. we had a calendar that we made from a Google sheet that showed people what to expect that was coming up in the schedule and the time frame that we wanted things to start. We had Word document setup sheets,
Okay.
and to some degree, people were using Excel and Notepad and whatever they wanted to. We managed our CNC programs just using Notepad and structured files on a server. Um, we Our planning existed as a process on paper, but really jobs were seldom planned other than just the minimal level of planning on how much material we needed and when we should order it. But it wasn't unusual for a job to have to sit for a day or two waiting for tooling that we hadn't
Oh, wow.
gotten ordered when we entered the work order into the system.
Right.
So that was, yeah, and I guess the main system that we used to get work done was people walking around and asking questions. So got a copious amount of
Sure.
that. So
Sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was just system after system. And another issue that we had was that um, we had been trying to mature our processes and document our processes and get people trained and following the processes. And I'm talking about how do we go about staging a job? How do we go about the process of planning a new work order? How do we do a setup? How do we train a new person on a setup? So we had, a lot of Word documents that were defined processes that were not well adopted, not always up to date, and I was really having a hard time getting the team to buy in on having defined processes at all, but then also being diligent about making sure they were followed. Um, really signing off that they understood the content. And, a lot of dynamics around that kind of limited our ability to grow and bring new people on board. So uh, there was this whole parallel world of trying to define how we operate the business step by step. Again, with the ERP system just being essentially a document generator. So
Mm-hmm.
we had a lot of challenges around that.
So speaking of adoption and buy-in, I'd love to have you share some anecdotes or just general themes for how it was to, for the shop floor guys to go paperless or adopt a new system or really be more process based, as sounds like we're trying to instill all along.
Yeah, those things all go together, and yeah, I guess just to break it apart a little bit, the adoption for the users in ProShop was really straightforward. We sat down in this conference room and went over the basic concepts of how to clock in and out, how to access a work order, how to know which work order to navigate to on a given work center, and just a really basic introductory training to start to track production progress on a work order. That's where things began for our machinists. And beyond that, the first time they went through a setup, we would walk them through where information was meant to be saved in the system and how to navigate and search for things, how to populate the tool records, for instance, and take a picture and save it. Just all the little basic things. We pretty well did that on the floor, learning as we went, and in an environment where we were trying to make people comfortable sharing knowledge with each other and sharing tips and best practices and that sort of thing. So the initial training to get people on board was very basic, and then we turned our focus toward how do we really get the most out of ProShop by carefully documenting the production process we had used in the information that's stored in ProShop so that we could duplicate the setup on the next run, and how to document issues that we were having, process development issues. we had to work as a team to agree on, is it okay to spend time putting tool records into ProShop so that we, can assign a storage location and track the quantity of inserts of a certain type that we have and that sort of thing. And we work together as a team to kind of figure out what to prioritize, when in the evolution of a work order is the right time to get that information initially put in and updated, and that sort of a thing. And then really the deep implementation of ProShop evolved over time, where we had the basic functionality to set up and track work orders through the system, clock our time, track job progress, and then we built it into our full, our repository for everything about how we set up the machine, every component that we need to pull when we're staging a job, all the deep details of how to set ourselves up for success on the next run. That's been essentially on the fly that we've been able to do it, and we haven't added any resources. We don't have a dedicated person who's just populating information. Everybody's participating, and it kind of resulted in a little bit of a cultural transformation where it's really clear to people now when they look at setting up a job that we might not have run for 18 months or 2 years, and they have to go back to that old legacy hodgepodge of data sources to try to figure out what we did back then. They realize, I kind of get an eye roll, and they they say, man, this is going to be a lot more work. I have to go back and pull all this stuff together. It's not just there for me. And that's a good reinforcement on spending the time to carefully document things that we're working on now, so that a year from now we don't have to do that eye roll and die. So
yeah. Was there any hesitancy with the guys of sharing what they know with the rest of the company, with the system? Like I won't be as valuable if other people know what I know.
Yeah, this is an area that I've put a lot of time and effort and thought into over the last couple of years, and it's as much a function of our culture, I think, as it is the capability of the ERP system. But I think in our industry there's a certain number of machinists in our industry who have learned from the environments that they've worked in, that if they hold their knowledge close and don't share, then that's what makes them valuable. And essentially preventing the flow of information is the thing that gives them job security. And we've really worked carefully on defining our company values and hiring people with the right set of attributes, where we reward openness and sharing of knowledge rather than being closed and preventing others from learning. So, and some of that too has to do with how you reward members of the team. If we reward people for seeing an opportunity or coming up with a new nugget of knowledge that we can apply to our processes, and if we reward sharing that with others and documenting it in the system, then we see more of that kind of open behavior. And it also team members have to trust each other and trust their leadership to know that they really are valued for their ability to be a good, productive member of a team, and that a rising tide lifts all boats. If you can get people to turn that corner over time and have them trust that sharing knowledge is something that the company values, then you start to see it self-perpetuating. And we're in a really good spot now, but that was as much of a cultural journey as anything else for us.
That's really insightful. Can you share a little bit about how you rewarded people for their contributions to the team, to the system?
It's we do and we're far from perfect, and we still have a lot to learn and things that we can do better. But anything from just in our morning Gemba walks that we do, where we're talking about um, what's going to go on the shop floor for the day. If we highlight successes or good examples of the kind of behavior that we're looking for and reinforce it in those discussions. Um, so we'll tackle it at that level. We also create situations on the shop floor where we ask people to work together to solve a problem, and not necessarily in a defined structure where one person is higher in the pecking order than the other. In fact, we might work to invert that in different ways to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to contribute. We do give out gift cards, just as kind of a spot recognition for someone to show them that they've done well, and we appreciate it. We do. It's an important topic of discussion in our employee reviews. So, all the way from just the really basic day-to-day conversations up through how we work with employees on their career development. We try to reinforce it at every level.
That is so good. That really just sounds like sort of best practice. Now, you mentioned Gemba walks, so it sounds like you're doing some lean activities as well. Can you elaborate on your journey with that, and does that even dovetail into ProShop at all?
It does, yeah, and we're on our lean journey, and we're not as far down that path as we are with ProShop, I would say. But yeah, some of the principles that we do embrace are the Gemba walk is a good example where the production is fluid enough on our shop floor, and different machines will run great one day and have trouble the next, and so we need a good way of giving everybody a lay of the land on what's working well, what isn't, what people need to draw their focus to. So we meet every morning at the same time to and we're a small enough shop. I think if we had dozens of machines and several independent parts of the organization, we'd probably break this down more. But for now, we do a Gemba walk where it's really just an opportunity to look at the traditional lean things that you would on a Gemba board. But for us, it's also an opportunity to see if we have a good handle on the production job as it exists right now. We have a dedicated person assigned to ensuring that they have a handle on what's going on each machine, and so we get an update from them to see if it's on target or if it's behind. If it's behind, what do they need help with? What other assistance do they need from supporting operators on a given day? It's just a structured and brief discussion where it's not storytelling, and it's not a place to solve problems, but it's just a snapshot of the status around the shop, and that gives us a good idea then of how to allocate our resources and where to direct our focus to make sure that we get the most done.
That's fantastic. Awesome. What's a good next question here? You talked about streamlining processes. Streamlining processes pretty much always results in better quality as well. Have you seen any measurable impacts in scrap rate or anything else that I guess any metric that might be an obvious improvement that you made?
Sure. Yeah. A really good clear-cut one right out of the gate. And one thing I have to hedge a little bit is to say that we didn't have good production metrics that we were able to get out of our prior system. Like I said, it was more of a document generation resource for us. But looking at our early implementation of ProShop in that transition phase, and then looking at what we've been able to do to improve our operating metrics since then. Our on-time delivery was, we were happy if it was 80% using the old system, and now we're consistently in the mid-90s. So, which for us is a very substantial improvement, makes our customers a lot happier. And we've seen similar levels of improvement on our scrap percentage. It's been driven down considerably. Customer returns has gone down. We've been pretty good about that for a number of years, but when you've driven your customer return percentage down to a very low level, and you can still cut it down, something like, cut it in half again, you get to a really good place with your customers. It's very rare for us to have a return from our customers at this point. So I talked about on-time delivery, quality. We separately measure NCRs and scrap. A lot of our parts in a volume production environment, we do batch inspections. So if you're doing an inspection and it doesn't pass, the whole batch has to go onto the NCR, and you deal with it offline. But we've been able to drive down both our scrap and our NCR percentages significantly through using ProShop. And the reason for it, I would say, is the real-time visibility you have on the health of your production. You're clocking parts off in real time, the schedule's up to date in real time. Any machine that you have access to on the, pardon me, I didn't realize this phone was still online. Any PC you have around the shop is a place to access ProShop. You're not looking for a paper job traveler. So we can change routings. We can do anything we need to in real time, and everybody sees the same thing at the same time. So seeing where the hotspots are at any moment and being able to address it with better information is really how you impact your core production metrics, and ProShop is fantastic at that.
Awesome. You mentioned tooling and cutting tools a little bit. Sounds like you maybe adopted the tool module relatively early. Is that the case?
Yeah, we did. ProShop gave us. I'm trying to think of a way to put this simply, but it's ProShop is a great set of tools that really gives you a good place to put all of the kinds of information that you need to have a really well-defined and successful production process. And that's one of the opportunities we saw in ProShop right from the start. So, you have a good way to document all of the setup information on tooling and work holding. And for us, there's a lot of ancillary stuff too on how to configure the bar feeder or the robot, and the gripper that you're going to use on the robot, and the program you're going to use on the robot, and all that. So ProShop gives you a place to put all that stuff. And since it gives you the place to put it, gives you an opportunity to be diligent about thinking everything through and documenting it in a good way. So it's helped us get to a point where, it's not really, we invest so much in creating a stable production process and really tuning in the details of what makes our machines run well on a setup. And once we've made that investment, we want to be able to repeat it. So it's important to know exactly the tooling configuration that we used. So we saw early on with ProShop that we had an opportunity to really get down to brass tacks and exactly what the setup is, get it all documented in a great way, and then be able to repeat that setup next time. So we do make extensive use of the tooling module for that purpose.
That's awesome. Yeah, candidly, it's, I'd say for clients that are the most mature in their usage, they pretty much all are using the tool module, but it's not often early on in the process they decide, this is one of the first things we're going to really dig into. But I think it's insightful that, when shops do make that choice, because of course everything is so, the cutting tools themselves are sort of like the nucleus of a whole job, right? It's at the center. If you don't have those right, nothing's going to go particularly well. And you mentioned early on, even just, a lack of planning and specificity maybe of what tools you need might lead to a machine sitting for a day or two because you don't have what you need. And that is, of course, just an absolute killer in throughput and scheduling and on-time delivery and all those things. So would you say that the impact of really going all in on documenting your tools has been a good return on investment?
Yeah, yeah, and the way to look at that is you kind of hit on it, but how long does it take to from when the last part comes off of a work center to finish out a work order to when the first part of the next work order comes off the machine? That's a critical time, and any guesswork, anything you leave undefined through that evolution out of one work order and into the next is just going to result in hours or days of delay in getting that job started. So, the planning that we do, making sure that our setup details are correct. It's every I don't know the exact metrics, but definitely every hour of time you put into getting that stuff documented could save you a day later on. It's for us, it's that level of impact that it's had. It's and to some degree, this is cultural too, because you have to give the team members permission to spend time during breakdown at the end of a job to make sure that information's right. Most people, I'd say in a traditional job shop setting, by the time they're making the last part of a work order, they're already worried about, how are they going to get the next thing set up in a timely manner? And so they don't want to spend the time documenting what they just got done doing. They want to shift their focus to the next thing, which is just a perpetual self-repeating problem of never having good setup documentation when you're starting a job. So we had to address that culturally, and then also kind of work with team members on their way of looking at online versus offline tasks, and recognizing that if you keep the setup information accurate throughout a production run, if you're having a problem with a rougher and it doesn't have good predictable tool life and good chip control, so you switch to a different one and it works better, get that documented in the system, and now it's there for the next person. So it's we try to keep that live and accurate throughout a production run, and then really reinforce culturally that whatever time it takes at the end to make sure that it's clean and complete is time well spent. So that's how we look at it.
Yeah, how do you, in practice and in theory, that's wonderful. How do you make sure that actually happens, where the documentation has been done thoroughly? And do you have is it part of your breakdown checklist that's in the system, or how do you just kind of make sure that reliably happens?
Yeah, it is that, but it's a tricky thing to achieve, because you can, one thing I've learned in being an owner in this business is that no level of authority just it gets you to a point where you can ask someone to do something and then be sure that that's going to happen. So, again, it's cultural. And for a while, as we were making our transition into this way of looking at things, we would have people, we'd ask, hey, did you get all that, right and accurate in the system? And of course, we'd get assurance that it was, but then, the next time we set it up, we'd see that it wasn't. And if you're spending your time policing that sort of thing, it can be very resource intensive for the leadership in the company. So the way to get it working well is to get the culture aligned, and the way you do that is to you find some champions who can lead by setting a good example. You work with them to make really sure that they know that it's worth spending the time, and that we want we need their help to kind of work out the kinks and figure out what it is that would cause cause it to be difficult to do that sort of documentation. And let's just really get this ironed out, and then keep that champion really engaged in doing a good job, and then others start to see the results and start to see the difference.
Mm-hmm.
And in a shop environment, people can see each other's work, and if one person is doing a great job and showing that it's possible, others will start to realize that they want to also be seen as doing good work. So that's kind of how we've arrived there. But you definitely do have to you have to reinforce culturally that what you're trying to achieve is really good documentation, and we're trying to set ourselves up for future success rather than just trying to get the next part out the door the soonest. It's a longer term mindset that people have to embrace.
Yeah, absolutely. And in some ways it's counter to getting that job out the door or getting the next setup started right away because it's, really hot. I would love to ask you, you talked about your on-time delivery improving from, the 80s to the mid 90s. And scheduling to me is partly the actual schedule module, it's got to work reasonably well, but there's so many things that feed into that I think the lion's share of the work of reliably hitting, 95% on time delivery is pre-scheduling work. It's all the things that feed into having a repeatable schedule. So can you just share a little bit about, and I mean, obviously process stability and reliability is a key part of that, right? The ability to hit a setup time because you have it really well documented leads into the setup, taking an hour instead of 4 or 5 hours or a day because you don't have the tool. Any other things that maybe aren't obvious to a listener that fed into your ability to reliably hit that high on-time delivery?
You're hitting on some of the high points. I think, for one, in our prior system, we never thought of planning as something that was really part of a work order. It was just that was its own separate process that was outside of ERP and ProShop. The way that you trained us to use it and the way the software is set up, it builds planning into the work order itself. You can see the planning status. And you can see when the planning is complete. So building the planning into our work orders has really been a good way to draw the level of attention that it needs to make sure that, if it's a side project and everyone's focus is on the tangible, visible parts going out the door on the shop floor, then planning never happens the way it should. So, building it into the work order and tracking it and giving it the same attention as the parts, I think has been an important piece of the puzzle for us. And then the other component for us that is more of it's in how we work out on the shop floor, but making sure that someone is paying attention to the performance of a work order in the system and addressing issues as they come up rather than letting them linger helps you sustain the production performance throughout the work order. If you have something that's causing you to stumble, but you don't quite address it proactively, and it just tends to, keep things running at 50% pace day after day after day, that'll stretch out a schedule. So you have to be proactive in jumping on those things. And we have our own ways of pulling the troops together, again, solving problems as a team, but working through process development to improve production performance if it's not achieving the targets.
Now, you've said the term process development a few times. Does that mean the process development page in ProShop?
It literally, yes, we literally use that. So again, ProShop gives you a place to put all of the important information that you need to have a good production process. And yeah, that was one of the things that I recognized right out of the gate that was just like a magic bullet for us, where if you have a way to log issues in the system that are causing you to stumble, for one, you now have an accounting of what the problems are. You can prioritize those and track solutions, whether or not they're effective, and so it becomes kind of a knowledge base on what you've tried. And the other thing that makes that invaluable is that the next time you're planning another work order to run that part again, you can review the process dev items that had been logged from the prior run, and you can make decisions to change the process in the early phases. So it's not like you set it up. Like I said earlier, you can repeat a setup and repeat the problems of the prior run, or you can use better information, like for the process development in ProShop, to make a decision to change something to prevent a problem. And so that's been a really valuable tool for us.
It's music to my ears. I love it. So as we look to kind of wrap things up here, with improvements in delivery and scrap and NCRs and all those things, do you have any sense of sort of total overall, improvement in throughput or effectiveness or even revenue growth that you might attribute to the transformation you've gone through?
Yeah, I think we're a year and a half in, and I'm really interested to see how things materialize this year. But out of the gate, what I'm really looking for is how can we scale the business? If we're limited in our ability to make decisions, then the growth of the business is self-limiting, and we won't be investing in new machines and hiring people and that sort of thing. So I'm really looking for ProShop to be a tool that we can use so that everybody on the shop has a clear picture of what they need to do so they can just go execute. And so it really has helped us in terms of kind of overcoming the leadership bottleneck of having to make every decision in real time, communicate it face to face with people on the production floor. So as we've embraced that philosophy of using ProShop as the driver and the source of information on what to do, it's helped us scale. At the end of the day, what does that all boil down to? I guess to put it in a nutshell, we've been able to recently start up a second shift. We never could have contemplated that before, and not just for the scalability of leadership decisions, but also getting people trained and on board in a uniform way. We didn't really go into detail on that, but we use ProShop's integrated quality management system we've created a breakdown of onboarding training for new employees, so that we know that each new person who comes in is going to conduct our processes in the same way as everyone else in the shop, and they see how they fit in with everybody else. So that's really the kind of the foundation of our training and onboarding for new people. And through the use of that, we've been able to hire new employees and start up a weekend shift, and those people are doing fantastic. And it's fun to see the ProShop training being the kind of the root, the base resource that they use to develop their careers, but also know the right way to do some detailed process, or resume production on a machine that's stopped. So we have that kind of firing on all cylinders, I would say. And from a scalability perspective, bringing another shift online is going to be a really big thing for us.
Yeah, absolutely. That's very cool. So I guess last question here: if you can imagine having not made the decision and still just sticking with your system, or maybe going back to spreadsheets or your own homemade thing, what would your shop look like today, or not look like, if you had not made the decision to move ahead with ProShop?
Yeah, I think that's pretty easy for me to visualize because I think we'd be, yeah, mostly the same as we were, saddled with kind of a, just the hamster wheel from a leadership perspective of always running as hard and fast as you can without seeing that the business is progressing or growing in a healthy way. Um, if you don't have good systems, you really do get stifled by um, just the leadership being the busiest thing in the shop and the machines not being as busy, um, because you can't execute without having your hands in everything all the time. And so um, I know very well what that looks like because we lived it for a lot of years, and I'm glad that we're not in that situation now. But yeah, I think to contrast that, more and more all the time, Pro Shop really is the source of information for the workers on the shop floor on what to do and what to focus on. And as long as we provide clear expectations with all the team members on how to use the capabilities of Pro Shop, and then we inject our priorities and our insight into how the work orders are written and prioritized out in the shop, then we have a system that can scale substantially. So it's been exciting to see the difference it's made on the shop floor and the kind of how everybody has rallied around that set of tools and that information, and people take pride in making it better and better all the time. So couldn't be a bigger contrast.
That's a wonderful cultural shift. Yeah. I love the clarity of if the leadership is busier than your machines, then that's not a good place to be. So yeah, that really distills it down into a real clear visual for me. Awesome. Well, Matt, I just so appreciate you sharing with us. And if people want to learn a little bit more about your company, about you, get in touch, how would you suggest they reach out to you?
Yeah, we have a website. It's innovative-me.com. That's for innovative manufacturing and engineering. So you can Google that. That'll take you to a good website that shows what we're up to and how to get a hold of us. Yeah, but we're awesome. Always looking for new opportunities and getting better every day, which means we're looking for more work, and we're also as we continue to scale, we're always looking for good employees, good machinists who are looking for a work environment where their career progress is maybe more defined by themselves than just waiting for tenure and some of the problems that they run into in other shops. So, our website's a great place for prospective employees to get a hold of us as well.
And I don't remember, you mentioned where exactly you guys located?
We're in Des Moines, Iowa, right in the middle of everything.
Okay, perfect. Well, Matt, thank you again. I've been obviously when we were doing our audio check, a couple of days ago, and you're like, I'm here at the shop. Should I go home where it's quieter? I'm like, no, actually, it's great to be in the shop. And I've been tracking the machine that's running in the background. It looks like you're about a minute 20 cycle time on whatever part that is.
Yeah.
So, because you get into a roughing cycle, I think every 120 seconds or a minute 20. So, that's been actually fun. I'm going to start tracking.
The sound is more like a baby elephant when the tool is fresh, and it's more like a Canada goose when it's dull. So
Canada goose.
Really
I was thinking like torturing a monkey or something. I don't know, but a Canada goose. That is a very apt description of.
There's another one we do that sounds like a bullfrog. So the job to get nicknames based on the sound.
Usually they're nicknamed based on the physical geometry, but I love the nickname of sounds. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
All right, Matt. Well, thank you again for sharing your journey today and your transformation. This has been very fulfilling for me because helping shops like you is just what we're here to do, and to see the impact is just fills my heart. So thank you for sharing, and thank you for being on the show.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity, and I really sincerely feel that Pro Shop is is exceptional. You guys really stand out in your commitment to helping customers. And I've seen that reflected in every single interaction I've had with ProShop employees across the board. So I really do appreciate it.
I'll share that with the team. Thank you, Matt.
Yeah.
Appreciate your time today.
Yep. Yeah. Take care. Thanks.
Bye.